Alright, Section 3, Operation. Your Electric Motor Division General Motors Locomotives DDA40X Operator's Manual. And we're on the Operation Section 3. Alright, Introduction. Section manual cover the recommended procedure of the operation of locomotive. The procedure briefly outlined do not contain the detailed explanation of the equipment location and function. Information section arranged in sequence of the meet commences the inspection, preparing for service with the instructions starting engine handling with light locomotive, the coupling train, routing, operating phases, various operation situations, special features, dynamic features are also covered. Preparation for service, the ground inspection. Check locomotive exterior running gear for locomotive fuel, oil, lube, oil, water, and air, loose dragging pipes. Proper hose connections between units of the multiples. Proper position, angle, cocks and shutoff valves, air cutout and truck brake cylinders, satisfactory condition, brake shoes, adequate supply of fuel, proper installation control jumper cables between the units. Alright, lead unit cab inspection. In the cab leading you with the number 1 engine control location described in section 2 of the manual should be correct for the equipment position of the operation as follows. Fuse and pitch panel, the main barrier switch closed is closed. If necessary, to close the main barrier switch of the turbocharged auxiliary pump limited light will come on and stay on for about 35 minutes. Your ground relay will switch and needs to be closed. Your all fuse switch is installed in good condition. Circuit breaker panel, control module circuit breakers on, low control circuit breaker on. If necessary, to close the local control circuit breaker with the circuit interrupter trip light comes on or should go automatically in about a half a minute. Fuel pump circuit breakers on, RV and MB motor circuit breakers on, turbocharged auxiliary pump circuit breakers on, light headlight circuit breakers on, cab head heater circuit breaker on, windshield wiper, water cooler, toilet circuit breaker on as required. Overspeed and automatic water drain circuit breakers on as required. 10. Load meter circuit breakers on, and that's indicated as a special extra equipment. Engine control panel, isolation switch in the start position, headlight control switch in the proper position, lead unit operation. 3. The dynamic brake cutout switch in the on-up position if provided. 4. Miscellaneous switch position as required. Locomotive controller. The in-control switch's operating levers should be in position as follows. Plane control fuel pump switch in the open or on-up position. The place the engine running switch provided with the generator fuel switch on the off and down position headlight switches, miscellaneous switches desired. Make certain that the throttle remains in idle position. The reverse lever is removed from control. Are your air brakes type 26L, insert automatic brake valve handle. If removed, place the suppression position. This will nullify the application of any safety control equipment used. Ensure independent brake valve handle if removed and move to the full application position. Position cutoff valve within the freight or passenger cut in depending on the makeup of the train. Place the multiple unit valve in the lead position. Inspect the number 2 electrical cabinet. Always at the walkaway left side of the locomotive with the far hood end of the number 2 circuit breaker panel. The number 2 engine control panel located at the eye level behind the latch door or set of applicable switches and circuit breakers of the same manner for the number 1 engine. Caution, if not necessary for the electrical cabinet with control of the number 2 locomotive in order to set up with control of the operation, make certain that the number 2 electrical cabinet compartment doors are secure with a latch prior before placing the locomotive in service. Engine room inspection. Number 1 and number 2 engines can readily be inspected with the opening of the access doors along the side of the long hood over the end of the locomotive. Check with the air compressor for the proper lubrication and oil supply. Observe the proper water level on the tank side glass. Check all levels. Check all valve with the proper position. Check the leakage, fuel oil, lubricating oil, water, air pressure. Alright, your engine's inspection. Engine should be inspected before as well as after starting the inspection. Engine starting, all engine room doors should be closed. Latch secure as in the engine room is pressurized during operation. Check the engine overspeed in Figure 3.1. Figure 1 shows the engine overspeed tripping, low oil pressure, oil level sight glass, the overspeed trip of the to the rest, and low oil plunger push to the set. Alright, observe the governor low oil pressure trip plunger, Figure 3.1 with the oil visible with the governor sight glass. Observe the crankcase oil pan pressure low with the water detector buttons reset. Buttons are set and pressed in. If the buttons protrude, Figure 3.2 press and hold for 5 seconds to latch the button in. Figure 3.2 shows the low water crankcase oil pan pressure detector. 1 is your crankcase pressure reset. 2 is the vent and test opening crankcase. 3 low water reset. And 4, test cock, low water. Alright, 4, observe at the top of the deck the airbox, the oil pan inspection covers of the placement securely closed. Starting the diesel engine. After proceeding inspection that have been completed with the diesel engine, may be started with the start of the controls located accessory end of the engine's area with equipment racks performing the following number 1 engine. If the engine temperature is between below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, preheat the engine and place the fuel primer engine start switch of the fuel prime position. Hold it there for 10 to 15 seconds with the prime in the fuel system. When the return fuel sight glass figure 3.3 full of free bubble position, injector rack position layer level lay shaft about 1/3 rack between about 1.6 on the scale before cranking and start of the move of the fuel priming engine start switch the engine start position, holding lay shaft firmly at 1.6 until the engine starts. Caution, do not crank the engine for more than 20 seconds. The starting of the temp allows the full 2 minutes cool down period before cranking attempts. Do not crank the engine with short repeated intervals, turning the engine over, starting the crank, overheating, shorting starter components of the cylinder, overfuel during the cranking, pulling lay shaft full out, cranking the purge, then position at 1.6. Alright, immediately after the engine starts, check the low water buttons on the detector, figure 3.2, holding the 5 seconds as needed to check for the engine oil pressure, engine oil level, the governor oil level to satisfactory. 5, check for the engine cooling water level that does not fall below the low mark of the engine running portion of the engine, of the water level, the gauge plate with the water level to slightly lower the engine when continuing run at speed by may shut down when the throttle is advanced. Figure 3.3 shows fuel oil light sight glass. The return fuel sight glass normally filled, bypass sight glass normally empty. Filter element housing. Alright, warning, do not overfill the engine cooling system. Always operate with the relief valve with the release closing system pressure excess with the coolant before operating water. Start the number 2 engine, start then proceed with the number 2 engine, same with the number 1 engine. After start of the second engine of the unit, always verify the fuel pump of the other engine. Continue with the run with the pump with the stop running with the before engine down and check fuses. Trailing unit cab inspection. Switch circuit breakers and control equipment located in the cab of the trailing unit should be checked for proper position as follows. Fuse and switch panel, main barrier switch and ground relay cutoff switches closed. All fuels and installed in good condition. Circuit breaker panels, control modules, circuit breakers are on, local control circuit breaker on, fuel pump control circuit breaker on, RV, MB, motor control circuit breaker on, turbocharged auxiliary pump circuit breaker on, light circuit breaker on, headlight circuit breaker on or off. And then your indicate special extras there, the cab heater, window shield wiper, water cooler, toilet circuit breaker on as desired as applicable. 8 automatic water drain cutout brake on, load test motor control circuit breaker on, indicate, and then your engine control panel, isolation switch start position, headlight control switch position correspond with the unit position consist. And remember, braking cutout switch in the up position if provided. Other switches may be placed on the on and off as needed, but they do not affect the locomotive operation. Trailing unit number 2 end inspection switch and circuit breakers. The number 2 end of the trailing unit are positioned the same way the number 2 end of the lead unit. Starting trailing unit with a diesel engine and trailing units are started with the same manner as the engine leading unit. Alright, place the units of the line. As the diesel engines are started with the inspection units may be placed in the line. Desired placing the isolation switch of the engine control panel with a run position consists of the standstill with a throttle level, the L level, the units of the idle position before placing a unit on the line. Locomotive controller. The controller switch operating lever of the trailing unit should be positioned as valve with the control fuel pump switch, generator fuel switch, engine 1 switch off position, throttle idle, selector lever on the off position. Reverse lever placed in the neutral, then remove from the control to lock the other levers. Air brakes 26L. Place the automatic brake valve handle in the handle off position. Remove the handle if so equipped. Place the independent brake valve in the full release position. Remove the handle if so equipped. Place the multiple unit valve in the desired position for the trailing unit operation. Place the cutout valve in the cutout position. Precautions before moving the locomotive. The following points if they should be careful to check before attempting to move the locomotive under power. Make sure the main reservoir air pressure is normal, approximately 130 to 140 pounds. Very important since the locomotive is equipped with electromagnetic switchgear, which will function as to respond with control of the permanent operation of the air pressure for the brakes. Check with the proper application relief of the brakes. Release the hand brake, removing any of the broken block under the hand wheels. Handling light locomotive. When the engine started with the place on the online preceding section, precautions complete with locomotive isn't handled as just fouls. Place the engine running switch, generator field switch in the on position. Place the headlight, other lights as needed. Invert or reverse level to move in the desired direction. Travel either forward or reverse. Place selector number 1 position if so equipped. Depress safety control foot pedal if so equipped. Release air brakes. Open throttle 1 to run 1, 2, and 3 as needed to move the locomotive to desired speed. No locomotive responds to throttle movement that is almost immediate. There's no delay when the power buildup. Engine should not be operated above the throttle position number 3 until water temperature is greater than 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Throttle should be in idle before coming to the dead stop, and reverse levels should be moved to change the direction of travel only when the locomotive is completely stopped. Hard draining air reservoirs and strainer. Air reservoir and strainer filters should be drained at least once each day. Whether the equipment is provided with the automatic drain valve, the draining should be done at a time the true changes until the definite schedule is established by the railroad. Monetarily operating the manual override lever, the auxiliary main reservoir, central figure filter, figure 3 filter, 2, figure 3-4, and figure 3-5. Monetary operating manual override lever of the main reservoir, central figure filter 1, figure 3-4, and 3-5. No solenoid override plunger is operative. The drain valve solenoid energized. Press the push button on the base for the compressor controller strainer, figure 3-6. Alright, and then figure 3-4 shows the compressed air drain system valves. 3-5 shows main auxiliary, main reservoir, central figure air filters and filter drains. Main reservoir filter, auxiliary main reservoir filter. It shows the compression strainer drain valve, the compressor control air supply valve, the compressor control strainer drain valve. Or your engine airbox drain. The system is completely automatic, requires no attention for the locomotive operator. The metal casting mounted on the front end of the plate with the connections with the pipe at each side of the airbox with the common drain pipe with the pressure for the opposition for the casting, restrict with the airflow with a permissible amount, yet allow the elimination of the airbox contamination. Cooling system and cab heater drain valve with the water drain valve located with the engine, something between the engine and accessory rack with the cab heat of the supply returning valve located with the same air, figure 3-7, the necessary locomotive operator to shut down an engine drain with the cooling system. All valves must be open, handles with the pair welds of the pipe. Also, the valve of the cab heater must be in the on position, allowed for the cab heater piping to drain. Note that the operator cab heaters is supplied with the number 1 engine, while the observer of the cab heater is supplied with the number 2 engine. Arrangements provide with a greater amount of the heat available to allow the shutdown of the engine of the DDA40X locomotive with a total loss of without total loss of the cab heat. During operation, locomotive the drain valves must be open. Must one of the following conditions: valves are open with the handles parallel to the pipe, closed with the handles at right angles to the pipe. Cab heater valve is labeled on and off. Normal operation: main engine water drain valve, cab heater drain valves closed. The heat supply return line valves open. Cab heater valve on the open position. During the freezing weather, the cab heater supply return line valves must be open, and cab heater on and off valves must be in on position to prevent freezing of the cab heater and piping. Alright, heater shut down due to leak. Heater supply with the return line with the valve closed with the heater valve open with the cab on and off valve with the on position allowed with the complete drainage of the cab heater and the piping. 3. The engine shutdown. Freezing conditions are impossible. With the all supply with the drain valve with the fuel preheater with the drain valve open, cab heater on valve and off in the on position. The valve must be on the on position to allow complete drainage of the cab heater and piping. 1 units equipped with a small special automatic cooling system drain. Automatic water drain control circuit breaker must be in the on position. Coupling locomotive units together. When coupling units together, the multiple unit operation, the procedure below is followed with the coupled and stretch unit to ensure that the couplers are locked and shovel the control cap between the units. Dynamic braking controls, cables equipped. If the operation field loop with control of the dynamic brakes desired, must be make a steam connections if possible. Equipment system made up of the older units that are equipped with the pneumatic control standing connection actuation pipes between all the units of the consist. Attached platform, safety precautions between the units, base, ground, engine room, engine inspection, cell line preceding articles, position, cab control of the trailing unit as in the outline procedure preceding sections. 6. Connect air brake hose between the units required the open required air brake air hose cutouts of both units. Alright, you're coupling locomotive with the train. The locomotive should be decoupled with the train. You have the same care with the wind when the coupling units together. The coupling makes the following check. To see that all the couplers are locked, stretching the connection. Connect air brake hose, make steam generate connections. If applicable, slowly open air valve locomotive train to cut in the brakes. Pump air if necessary using the following procedure. Pumping air. After cutting the air brakes on the train, note the reaction of the main reservoir air gauge. The pressure falls below the train line pressure of the pump air valve. Place the generator fuel switch in the off down position. Move the reversal level to neutral position. Open the throttle as needed. Speed the engine, thus increase the air compressor output. Note the throttle may be advanced to run 4 or 5 if necessary. Engine should not, however, be run unloaded as if pumping air at speed between on the number 5 position. Alright, your brake pipe leakage test. Prior to operating the 260L brake equipment, the leakage test must be performed and accomplished with the following manner: with the cutoff valve, with the position of the freight passenger, with the depending on the equipment to make up with the train, with the move of the automatic brake valve handle with the gradually into the surface position, equalizing reservoir gauge indicates 15 psi that has been made. Without any further movement, the automatic brake valve handle with the operator of the brake pipe gauge until the pressure has dropped. The 15 psi of the exhaust has been stopped with the blowing at the moment of the turn-off cutoff valve with the cutoff position. The cutouts to maintain function of the brake valve from insertion. Cutoff valve with the turn with the cutoff of the position. The brake pipe gauge should be observed that any of the possible drop of the brake pipe pressure should be timed for 1 minute. Brake pipe pressure may not exceed the rating established for the railroad rules. After checking train line leakage for 1 minute with the result of observed within the required limit of return, the cutoff the indicator of the required off freight or passenger. Proceed to reduce the equalizing gauge pressure until the pressure is the same as the brake pipe gauge pressure. Accomplish moving the automatic brake valve handle gradually with the rate until the full surface of the application has been attained. After the brake pipe test has been completed, return the automatic brake valve handle to the release position. Alright, starting the train. The method of the use of starting the train depends upon many of the factors: type of the locomotives being used, the type of the weight and length of the train, amount of the slack of the train, as well as the weather, grade, and the track conditions. Since all of these factors are variable, the specific train conventional instruction cannot be provided. It will therefore up the operator to be used with good judgment, proper applying with the power to the suit requirements. These, however, the certain general consideration should be observed as discussed in the following paragraphs. The basic characteristics: diesel locomotives, the high starting tractive effort directly related to the throttle position. Design a locomotive with a power control system with a traffic effort low and low throttle position, high and high throttle position. This effort is available immediately with the throttle position. These characteristics make even the independent locomotive brakes and the manipulation of the throttle of the run from one and idle generally unnecessary during starting. The available tractive effort does, however, make it interpretive of the air brakes completely released for the attempts of they made with starting the train on the average leakage to make more 10 minutes of the more to complete the release of the brakes and reintroduction of the made with therefore important sufficient time to be allowed after stopping. Otherwise, applied brakes to allow them to fully be released after attempting starting the train. The locomotive possesses sufficiently high tractive effort to be enabled to start with the most train without taking slack. The practice of taking slack indiscriminately should be thus avoided. This will be over the instance in which it's advisable and sometimes necessary to take slack in starting the train. Care should be taken in such a case that it prevents excessive locomotive acceleration, which would cause undue shock to draft gear and couplers and landing. Proper throttle handling is important to the starting of the train, but it is direct power being developed as the throttle is available. The power increases the curve almost immediately. Power is applied value depending upon the throttle with the position of their advisable with the advanced throttle open one knot at a time. Starting with the train. The train should be started with a low throttle position possible, thus keeping the sound speed of the locomotive at a minimum until the slack is being removed and the train is completely stretched. Sometimes it's available to reduce the throttle notch and throttle notch or two movement of the locomotive became with the movement in order to prevent sledging the slack too quickly avoid slipping. However, the IDAC wheel slip control function corrects slips from instantaneously reduction power with these small increments by application of sand. Cumulative effect of the large number of the power reductions wheel slip the system is called the locomotive to maintain power at a level where adhesion can be maintained. Alright, we are ready to start with the following general procedure with the recommended. Place the selector. If used in the number 1 position, move the reverse lever to the desired direction, either forward or reverse. Play for the engine run and apply the generator fuel switch in the on position. Play for both automatic and independent brakes. Release both automatic and independent brakes. Open the throttle 1 notch every few seconds as follows. To run number 1, engine will quickly load. Loading will stop at a specifically low value that may be denoted with the load indicating meter and easing starting space if the locomotive may start on the train. Note, designing the locomotive power control system makes it generally unnecessary to apply the locomotive independent brakes and the manipulate with the throttle between run 1 and idle steering standing to run 2 and 3. Higher experience demands a schedule and determine this until the locomotive moves. 6. Reduce throttle 1 and more notches if acceleration is too rapid. After the train is stretched, advance throttle as desired. Alright, note, when you operate the full throttle with the climb the hill with the accelerator with the IDAC wheel slip can react with the rapidly with the correct minor slips and means of the power reduction, saying the wheel slip lightly seldom comes to indicate severe slip. The wheel slip corrective action is often seen with the load current indicating meter with a steady reduction. Load current below the switch normally expressed with the full throttle with a given this speed, but does not misinterpret the power reduction as fault is merely wheel slip of the control system during the job of the maintaining power level of the adhesion in the condition established by track and grade. Alright, your acceleration at a train. As after a train has been started, the throttle can be advanced rapidly with the desire to accelerate the train. Speed in which the throttle is advanced depends on the schedule and the type of the locomotive the train involved. Generally, however, the advancing throttle 1 notch at a time is desired to do so to prevent slipping. Loading indicating meter provides the best guide for throttle handling and accelerating power. Must observe the meter and may be denoted with the power moves toward the right. Increased amperage of the throttle is advanced with assuming that if the increased power observed the meter pointing or begins moving toward the left of the time of the throttle may engage the advance for maximum acceleration without slipping. When the throttle should be advanced 1 notch at the time of the meter pointer begins moving toward the left until the full power is reached in the throttle position number 8. Alright, drag duty power control. The DDA40X locomotive is equipped with a system called the maximum performance control that operates with the conjunction with the IDAC wheel slipping control system to ensure the optimum maximum short time power as well as the optimum continuous power of the traction motors under various operation conditions. System accomplishes the following. Or the application of the much available horsepower with the traction motors adhesion with the connections will allow application full with available horsepower with the traction motor with the track speed with the high load current levels caused with the traction motor to become hot and the power will automatically reduce to protect the motors from obtaining characteristics indicated in step 3 and 4. A standard or special speed matched with the other model with the locomotive system regulated for the power to allow the much load current with the traction motors as they can continuously accept without damage. At a slower speed with the high throttle position, load current will be greater than they allow continuous and short time ratings must be observed. At loads current with the greater than allowed continuously power is regulated through the DDA40X short time characteristics with the other locomotive models. Operating over a rail crossing. When operating a locomotive at speeds exceeding 25 miles an hour, reduce throttle to run 4 position in at least 8 seconds. Before the locomotive reaches for the rail crossing, the locomotive is operating a run number 4 position low running less than 25 miles an hour, allowing the same interval with the place of the throttle with the next lower position advance of the throttle after all units considered that have been passed over the crossing procedure necessary to ensure the decay of the motor generating voltage safe level before the mechanical shocks of the curve of the rail crossing and the transmitter of the motor brush. Running through the water. There is absolutely no circumstances for the locomotive to be operated with the water deep enough to touch the bottom of the traction motor water any deeper than 3 inches above the rail is likely to cause the traction motor damage. When passing through any water with the rail's excessive area, the precaution with any circumstances always get very slow, never exceed 2-3 miles an hour. Alright, your wheel slip correction. Instantaneous reduction of locomotive power together with automatic standing and function for the corrective wheel slip of the adhesion regarding regain time and application standing continuous while power smoothing restored. The system functions entirely automatic. No action required locomotive operator. Depending upon the seriousness of the slipping, the wheel slip light may not flash on and off the wheel slip control system. The system functions in the correct slips. However, the IDAC wheel system control reacts so rapidly to the correct minor slips that the Wheel slip light seldomly comes on indicative severe slips. Wheel corrective action often seen at load current indication meter as a steady reduction load current below the switch of the normally expected full throttle with a given speed. Do not misinterpret the power reduction as a fault. It's simply the wheel slip control system doing its job, maintaining the power level, the adhesion control conditions established with the track and grade. Note, whenever possible, the operation of the grade should be a full throttle position. Throttle reduction during a wheel slip is recommended only when the wheel slip condition as such. Repeated wheel slips will cause severe lurching and then may hold the train apart. So severe conditions may indicate the need for the helper, may need to train up the hills in two parts. Are your wheel slip light? If the wheel slip blinks on and off slowly, persistently, burns continuously during locomotive operation, pair with the wheel with the sliding circuitly, or circuit difficulty may exist due to the seriousness of the sliding wheels under such indication the locomotive should be immediately stopped. An investigation made to determine the cause of the wheels may be sliding due to lock brake, damaged traction motor bearings, and broken pinion gear teeth. Repeated ground relay circuit breaker interpretation tripping accompanied by unusual noises, thumping, and squealing may also indicate serious traction motor trouble, and they should be investigated at once. Do not allow the unit to be that must be isolated due to the repeated circuit interrupter action repeated with the wheel slip of the ground relay action and remain locomotive consist unless it has been absolutely determined that all the wheels of the rotate freely. Locomotive speed limit. Maximum speed of the locomotive can safely operate to determine the gear ratio of the ratio experienced with the double number of the touches 5918 and 59 indicate with the number of teeth to the axle gear with the 18 represent the number of teeth with the traction motor pinion gear. Since the two gears with the two gears meshed together, it can be seen that their particular ratio of motion armature turns approximately 3 times with a single revolution of the drive wheels. The locomotive speed limit therefore determines the maximum permissible rotation of the motor armature with exceeding with the limit maximum could result in the serious damage of the traction motors. Various gear ratios are able to suit specific locomotive operation requirements. For each gear ratio, the minimum operation speed information is given in the general data section beyond this, at the beginning of this manual. If the locomotive is operated with a higher speed higher than the stipulated with the maximum greater ratio of the locomotive, the control system for the cutback of the available power to voltage limitation speed and still increase with the simultaneously still occurs slip occurs, complete interruption of the power and it will occur and rough regulation will hold the speed back. Alright, a mixed gear ratio operation. All units consist of a different gear ratio locomotive should not operate at the speed except for the recommended for the unit having lowest maximum permissible speed. Similar operating should never be slower than the minimum continuous speed with the maximum motor amperage for the units having established short time ratings. To obtain maximum tonnage rating on a single application, the electric motive will, upon request, analyze the actual operation that makes specific tonnage rating recommendations. Dynamic braking. Dynamic braking on locomotives equipped can improve the extreme variable to reduce retarding the train speed in many phases of locomotive operation. It is particularly valuable upon well descending grades and the reducing necessity of using air brakes. Depending on locomotive, the gear ratio, the maximum braking strength is 18 to 25 miles an hour. Train speed higher than the optimum braking effectiveness gradually declines. Speeding increases. For this reason, it's important that dynamic braking can be started before the train speed becomes excessive. While dynamic braking is the speed, train should be not allowed to creep up using careless handle of the brake. If the locomotive is equipped with a basic dynamic brake, the braking strength rapidly declines and speed falls below the optimum nominal 24 miles an hour. However, the special order with the extended range dynamic braking may provide extended range system maintain maximum braking strength down to the train speed to about 6 miles per hour. Lower train speed dynamic braking strength declines rapidly. To operate dynamic brake as follows. The first level must be positioned in the direction of the locomotive movement. The throttle must be reduced to idle. The move selector number 1 to the off position. Pause for 10 seconds before proceeding. Move selector level B to the braking position. Stop with the dynamic braking circuit. Also be noted that the slight amount of braking effort occurs. Evidence of load current indicator meter. 5. After select is bunched, the throttle is used for the control of the dynamic braking strength advance of 13 degrees away from the idle, in which was denoted the engine speed automatically increases. 6. Brake effort with increased by slowly advancing throttle with the full 8 position. Desired maximum braking effort automatically lined up 700 amperes by dynamic braking current limiting regulator module DR. If the locomotive is equipped with extended ranging dynamic brakes, braking current with the regulator with 750 amperes maximum train speed flows of 22 miles per hour. Well, automatic regulation maximum braking strength with the braking warning light with the controller should seldom give it the indication of the extent of the braking operation. The brake warning light does not flash, however, move of the throttle handle should be stopped when the light goes out. If the light goes out after several seconds, the move of the throttle handle back to idle slowly until the light goes out. After the light goes out with the throttle, maybe the advanced increase of the brake effort. No brake warning light circuit with the train line ends with the warning will give the lead unit any of the unit with the generating excessive current in the dynamic braking. Regardless of the load indicating meter reading of which should be less of the brake rating whenever the warning light comes on, should be noted that not allowed to remain any longer than 2 to 3 seconds before steps are taken to reduce the braking strength. Where necessary, the automatic brake valve must be in conjunction with the dynamic brake. However, the independent brake valve kept fully released whenever the dynamic brake is in use, or the wheels may slide. At the speed decreases below 10 miles an hour, basic dynamic brakes become less effective. When the speed further decreases the permissible complete release of the dynamic brake, placing the selector valve in the off and number 1 position, applying independent brakes simultaneously, preventing slack from running out. Locomotive can be operated with a dynamic brake while coupled to older units are not equipped with braking current regulators. All the units of the car are the same gear ratio. The unit having the lowest maximum brake current rating should be placed in the lead. Says the operator can then operate with the control braking effort limited with the unit with having the lowest braking current rating without overloading the dynamic braking system of the trailing unit. Locomotive consistent must always be operated not exceeding the brake current of the unit having the lowest braking current rating. Units equipped with a dynamic braking current have load limiting regulators operated with the DDA40X locomotive dynamic braking regardless of the gear ratio difference of maximum gear brake current ratings. Units not equipped with dynamic braking current limited regulators, different gear ratios will require special operating instructions when used with multiple DDA40X locomotive dynamic braking. Alright, dynamic braking wheel slide control, dynamic braking. Each series of the group of the 2 traction motors connected with a parallel. Each dynamic braking resistor circuit with the other series of the group of 2 traction motors with arrangement. Wheel slips into the monitored other motors of the system. This effect of the main wheel over the slip dynamic braking. Some of the effect of the confirmed have the parallel arrangement dynamic braking resistor grids, traction motors, and such of the full response of the IDAC wheel control slip valve or system. They're available during the dynamic braking as well with during power operation, precise immediate regulation maintained with the IDACS. Monitoring effect created by parallel arrangement provides extreme stable dynamic braking operation. In addition to both bridge circuit with deployed with a protected against the possible simultaneous slip, they may not be detected by the IDAC. Pair wheels detecting tending to rotate slower for speed of the retarding effort of the traction motor unit. Effect of reducing traction alternator field excitation is reduced in the unit affected. Sanding is automatically applied to the rails when retarding effect of the traction motor of the unit is reduced. Tendency for the wheel to set the rotate slower speed and is overcome after wheel set resumes normal rotation. Retarding effort of the traction motor returns increase to the former value. Automatic sanding continues 3 to 5 seconds after the wheel slide tendency is corrected. Or you're double heading. Prior to double heading behind another locomotive making a full surface brake pipe reduction with the automatic brake valve and the cutoff of the cutout position, return automatic brake valve handle to the release position, play for the independent brake valve in the release position. On the 26L equipment, place the multiple unit lead in position. Operation throttle is normal. The brakes are controlled. Lead the locomotive with the emergency application that may be made. However, the automatic brake valve of the second unit of the brakes of the units may be released by depressing the independent brake valve handle while it is in the release position. Your operation and helper serve basically there's no difference instruction for the operating of the locomotive, the helper and the helper. And for instance, if it's desirable to get over the grade of the short possible, whenever the possible operation grade should be in full throttle position, throttles can be reduced however the wheel slips the cause of lurching that may threaten back to the train. Isolation a unit. Occasion arises with the side of the advisable to isolate the locomotive unit. Observe the following. When operating under pressure, the unit is isolated with any time of the discretion as time and necessity should be used. Operating dynamic braking point with a dynamic brake attempting to isolate this does by producing a lever throttle, idling isolation switch that can be moved to start position, eliminating braking, and that braking is resumed other units of the function with a normally with the field loop controlled dynamic brakes being and do not change the unit selector switch. Changing operator ends. The locomotive consists of 2 or more units where the operator controls the following procedure recommended with the changing the operator to the opposite end of the locomotive equipped with the 2/6L brakes. On ending being cut out, one over the automatic brake valve handle with the service position make a 20-pound reduction after the brake pipe exhaust stop. Place the cutout valve in the cutout position. Push the dial indicator handle into the turn. Handle and turn to the desired position 3, the independent brake with the full release position. Place the multiple unit valve with the trail position depending on the brake equipment. On the trailing unit, multiple unit is located on the left-hand side of the air pedestal to push the dial indicator inward and turn in desired located position. Push the automatic brake valve handle and the off position handle may be removed if so equipped. Place select the lever off position. Place reverse or normal position. Move the lock control. Move the controller. All switch of the opposition. Be absolutely certain that the control of the fuel pump, the switch of the generator field switch, engine run switch are in the opposition. The engine control panel with the place the headlight control switch in the proper position. Trailing unit operation. Place the other switch in the on as needed. A circuit breaker panel with the control circuit breaker with the load circuit control panel remain in the on position. Note if the load control circuit breaker is vertically placed in the opposition, the engine will shut down when train line control circuit with the re-established out of the engine with the restart of the no manual with placing the load control circuit breaker on. After completing the operation obtained with the proceeding of the shaft with the move of the cab of the new leading unit, no change need to be made to number 2 in the leading unit. Hard on and being cut in. After the controller making certain throttle level the idle selector on the opposition general and field switch off, the insert the reverse level to leave the neutral position, insert automatic brake valve handle if removed, place in the suppression position, nullify the safety control for the overspeed and the train control use, insert independent brake valve handle if removed, move the handle to full independent application position, position the control valve in the freight or passenger depending on the makeup of the train, place the multiple unit of the valve in the lead position and circuit breaker of the panel with the control circuit of the breaker on the on position, other circuit breaker of the main on position. The engine control panel places the headlight with the control switch proper position on the switches as needed in the unit selector switches used in much of the properly positioned. 9. A controller places the engine run control of the fuel pump, the generator field switches on. Other switches may be placed on as needed to stop the engine as there are 6 ways to stop the engine. Press 1, press stop the button, stop button on the engine control panel, number 1 and number 2. The locomotive staying still under the power over the isolation switch should be placed in the stop position. Stop button then can be pressed and stop number 1 and 2 engines applicable since the reaction with the stop button is instantaneous if it need not to be held in. 2. Press the emergency fuel cutoff button. The emergency fuel cutoff button should be located near each of the fuel filter opening of the engine control panel. Push button operates the same manner. The stop button need not to be held in or reset. And any one of these emergency fuel cutoff switches will stop both engine and locomotive. We use the delay shaft lever. The delay shaft lever accessory end of the engine can be operated to override the engine governor and move the injector racks at no fuel position. Alright, 4. Close the low water detector test cock. Low water detector trips the oil is dumped from the governor low oil shutdown device stopping the engine. Use the 5. Use the throttle level. Stop all the engines online and consist simultaneously with the cab leading unit. Move the throttle to the idle position. Pull the lever out and always to the controller. Move it beyond idle to the stop position. 6. Pull out the low oil shutdown rod on the side of the governor. Note, the observe the freezing weather precaution whenever the engine is in shutdown during cold weather. Alright, securing a locomotive for layover. The pressing the place of the reverse level the neutral position valve the idle position. Place selector lever in the off position. Remove the reverse lever in the controller. Place the isolation start in the isolation switch and start. Press the stop button in. Place all switch control panel in the off position. Shut down. Place all the circuit breaker of the switch with the circuit of the control breaker. Engine control panel off position. Open all knife switches. No, main battery switch and turbo lube oil circuit and breaker must remain 35 minutes after loading operation throttle number 3 above. Apply handbrake and block wheels as necessary. Cover exhaust tab if danger of severe rain. Drain otherwise protect the engine cap heaters if there is draining and danger in freezing. Figure 3.7. Alright, towing a locomotive with the train. When the locomotive is equipped with a 26L air brake, it is replaced with the train. Consider the tow for the control of the air brake equipment should be as follows. Drain all the air from the main reservoir air brake equipment and left the engine is remaining idling. Place small beam in the dead position. Place cutout valve in the cutout position 4. Place the independent brake valve handle in the release position 5. Place automatic brake valve in the handle off position 6. Cut in the dead engine feature of the turning cutout cock figure 2.9 into open 90-degree to pipe position. Engine cock located beneath the cab floor beneath may be reached through an access door at all sides of the motor. Caution: the pressure regulator figure 2.9 adjusts the maintenance point with the accordance with the type of the brake equipment. The locomotive operator should not attempt to adjust the braking pipe and pressure. If the engine idling, the idling switches must be in position as follows: isolation switch and start position. All knife switch in the closed position, local control circuit breakers on, generator field starting fuse, fuses should be removed, the other fuses should be left in place. Control and fuel pump switch on, fuel pump circuit breaker on, throttle and idle, selector off, the reverse level to neutral, remove the reverse lever from the control. 2 lock controls. 8. If the locomotive is towed to the D and the dead end of the train, switches should be positioned as follows: all knife switches open, all circuit breakers off, all control switches off, starting fuse off, removed, and throttle from the idle and selector off at the reverse level that should be removed from the controller. Note: if there is danger of freezing, engine cooling system should be drained. Figure 3.7. The freezing water precautions. As long as the diesel engine running, cooling system will be kept automatically regardless of the ambient outside temperatures encountered. It is only the engine shut down when they stop for the reason for the cooling system required protection against freezing. Forming the following draining engine cooling system: open the cab heater supply with return valve figure 3.7 at the base of the equipment rack. Open the main cooling system drain valve. Open the both cab heater drain valves. Open fuel preheater drain valve in the locomotive cab. Place the cab heater shutting valve in the open position. If necessary, to open any of the water tank plugs, caps, facilitate drainage. Alright, Section 4, Operator's Response to Trouble Introduction. This section covers the operational problems that may occur with the road, suggests the action may be taken by the operator in response to trouble. The safety device automatically protects the equipment in case it falls the operation almost out of any component. General the protection is obtained with one of the following methods: complete shutdown diesel engine, complete elimination functions such as the dynamic braking, unloading diesel engine restriction, slower idle engine speed. In some instances, the manual resetting of the function may be necessary. Automatic resetting, the time delay may be provided with backup regulation protection. Equipment that will allow the locomotive to move under its own power to a point where the maintenance service is available. Alright, and then it shows the bell rings, and then alright, if your bell rings, you have no loss of power, or a slight loss of power felt. Trailing unit engine. Yeah. Yeah. No action required unless the alarm pursuit of the alarm will continue within more than a few minutes. Investigate the cause of the alarm and the trailing unit's loss of power felt. Trailing unit reduce the idle speed with the power shutdown. No action 10 seconds with the press of the ground relay. Push button control stand if equipped. If the alarm unit does not stop with a few minutes, investigate the cause of the alarm and the trailing unit's auto water drain light and the engine shutdown during freezing weather. Make certain when the cab heater is on and off valves are in the opposition. If the light comes on, the engine is not shut down immediately. Isolate the unit with the investigate the cooling system system and conditions. Circuit interrupter training light over the alarm bell. Traction motor flash. No action required to operate. Do not reduce the throttle after about 1.5. Highlight voltage ground fault indicator may also indicate traction motor flash over after a half a minute. Circuit interrupter trip lightly go out with the power restored automatically. The high voltage ground and the fault light comes along with the circuit interrupter trip light with the high voltage ground light will go out about 15 seconds before the interrupter light goes out. High voltage ground fault light on or alarm bells ring. Traction motor flash after 10 seconds. Press the ground and use that button. Control stand equipped. The light will go out with the power restored. High voltage path ground due to moisture and insulation will occur automatically with the units equipped with the response above. Ground relay trip repeats. So only at high speed temporary operation locomotive throttle position may held Dry out the grounding circuit with the AR12 rectifier fuse and single group blown out. Simply response above. If the ground relay cannot reset its isolation unit. Load test light on. Load test light switch in the load test position may be the probable cause. Suggest operator response. Caution the operator with a serious damage of the equipment will occur. Turbocharger with auxiliary pump light on. The operatable cause is normal condition 35 minutes after the engine starts. The engine, no action necessary. No power light on. Alarm running. Alarm ringing. No other lights. Engine shutdown control switch is set up for the operation. Operator's response, isolate and test auxiliary generator fuse, replace necessary, restart the engine. No power light on, alarm rail ringing, no other lights. Engine overspeed, reset overspeed, trip lever, restart engine. Trip light occurs operating at lower level throttle positions and prevent further tripping. Or no power light on the engine running, an alarm rail ringing until loaded. The AR12 field fuse is blown. Test fuse replaced. AR14 fuse is blown. Test replaced. Hot engine light on alarm. Tunnel does operation. No action necessary. Alarm continues more than a few minutes. Alarm continues. Isolated effective unit. Water level is too low to shut down the engine. If freezing conditions are possible, drilling with a cooling system up, opening the 5-valve with equipment racking, and some by opening the cap heater on and off valve. See figure 3.7. Condition: hot oil, low oil, crankcase pressure, low water, light engine shutdown. Low water due to leak, low oil due to leak, crankcase pressure due to crack, piston, bad cylinder seals. Hot oil due to plunge oil coolers. If shut down, low water, additional water may be enable continued operation. Otherwise, place isolation switch to isolation position. Drain the cooling system and freeze the condition as possible. Warning: if the engine is restarted, shut down immediately if the oil pressure is at less than 15 psi. If the cranking pressure detector is tripped with no further engine room and inspection, do not attempt to restart the engine. Isolate the unit drain control system in accordance with the railroad regulations. Preheat automatic along with the load current indicating meter dropping. Normal wheel correction on a surface condition. No action required. Do not reduce throttle unless slipping is severe. The lurching threatening to break the train. Or intermittent wheel slip like conditions. Normal white wheel slip corrections under severe. No action required due to reduced throttle and prevent lurching. If the unit is equipped with the lead truck standing switch, leave the position on climbing a hill. If the unit is equipped with the place lead unit with the power reduction switch with the on position, slightly reduced and low unit power would enable to drift the rails without slipping. Your pneumatic control switch is on. There's a penalty, emergency brake application, train stop, reverse center, throttle 5 engine operation, pump brakes, and return throttle to idle. Brake warning light regulating system failure, pneumatic brake cutoff switch, engine control panel effective with the opposition. If desired, only the DDA40X later model units will be airing. They consist of a dynamic braking operation maintaining the BWR provided dynamic braking regulation, but the train handling will be rough. And that is the last. That finishes the book the DDA40X model operator's manual for General Electric Motor.